Hey everybody, it's Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun. We are live today with Community Talks. Today we have Bettina Plendl and Lori Frank. Bettina is a financial divorce specialist, and Lori is I'm trying to get the back here. Lori is a mediator. So how about we do an overview of what's happening? Bettina, you mentioned you want to know what's happening in real estate, and I did a presentation yesterday. Do you guys want to see it?
Oh, yes,
Sure.
please.
Okay. All righty.
As I think real estate is a big thing. I live in Nanaimo, and I'm blown away how many houses come on the market every day.
Well, I think we've had about 90 coming on the market so far. So I did this presentation yesterday for an international group, just talking about pre and post COVID and how it's affecting real estate. So generally when somebody writes an offer, they do have 7 to 10 days to do their conditions. This is just to explain, because I was talking to an international group, it's different throughout the world. So we actually have what's called the Torrens system, and it's very straightforward. So once you know you want a property, we write an offer, and then we have these conditions, financing, inspection, review of the property disclosure, review of the title, and getting an insurance quote. And then what I do is I coach people through who to contact when, and looking at when the inspection is going to happen. I'm there for them, and I give them some perspective on what's happening with the house, both when I'm viewing the house and also during the inspection. So I attend the walkthrough so I can ask the inspector questions that probably the buyer generally won't know. So the value of a realtor is not just finding the house. It's in the wisdom of writing in the right clauses when you have an offer on a property so that you can have the correct conditions. So for instance, in this case, it was a duplex. So these buyers wanted to meet the neighbors, or I suggested that they meet the neighbors. So we added that as a clause. And then once it goes unconditional, the money, the deposit, is put into trust at our office, and then that money gets applied to the down payment of the house. And so that's figured out by the lawyers with their statement of adjustments. And then you take possession of the property about 1 to 2 months later. Generally, it's about 6 weeks to 8 weeks out. So how things have changed for buyers pre and post COVID is before COVID, we would do a lot of face-to-face meetings with them. Now what we're doing is we're meeting them online and explaining all the documents regarding agency and the privacy of information documents that we have to explain to them. And then I usually email a mortgage broker who I work well with, and I introduce the buyer to the mortgage broker, and we set them up on an online search, and I explain how to go through the online search, and that I can see through the portal what buyers are looking at. So it's really important, if they use the portal properly, it can be a very effective tool, and that portal is called Matrix.
I have a question, Jane. So
yeah.
How do I find a house right now? Again, a lot of houses are listed. How do I see the house?
Okay, so before, if you look at on the thing here, it says visiting properties face to face. What we do.
Okay, sorry. I thought that is you're already in the house. Sorry. I didn't look that far.
So we're can you see the buyer's presentation right now, the blue thing?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So okay. Post-COVID, what we're doing is a lot of agents are doing video tours of properties so people can see them before they go in.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second viewing is face-to-face.
Oh, okay.
And then the offer, we used to do that face-to-face and online. Now we almost always do it online via DocuSign, and I walk them through the offer over the phone or using Zoom.
So, just if I start from the top, so you meet with the client, they get to know you, you get to know them, what they are looking for, then you send them listings and ask them already to be pre-approved before they place an offer. Is that what the order is here?
No, the order is they get pre-approved before we even view properties.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
reason for that is you don't want anybody in the property. I'm going to go back to here. You don't want anybody in the property who is not financially qualified.
Okay. Of course.
And this is a pretty big deal. So, yeah.
I agree. Yes, buying a house is a big deal. I see it's often the largest asset the family has. And for sure, yes.
Well, as a listing agent, I'll just go back to here. I'll go to the next slide, actually. So as a listing agent, we do a lot of the viewing. So I would view the property without the seller present. And again, I would assess it. For buyers, what I'm doing is I'm viewing the property by video first, and then they come and they go through the virtual tour or they go through it virtually with me. And then the second viewing is face-to-face, and we observe physical distancing. And then when we write the offer, it's again physically distant. But as a listing agent, I'm asking the buyer's agent, has the buyer viewed the video? Have they got financially qualified? Like, we don't have any looky-loos right now.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we're doing open houses also virtually. And I actually proposed an offer to, or an idea to our broker about doing that with everybody in our office, coordinating open houses around similar listings so that people can just hop in the same Zoom link to different properties.
Wow.
But
That's awesome. So you have a team sitting in several houses, and the people can sit on their couch and walk through a house.
yeah, I actually had a guy from Fort St. John looking at a property that I was doing an open house for. So they're on the other end of the phone, and I'm talking them through, and they're asking questions, and it was weird.
We are getting used to it, I guess.
Yeah. So here's what's happening with I'll just go to large screen again. Here's what's happening. So the number of sales is down. Total listings is down 16%. Total properties down is 58%. In terms of price, so we're at just about 10% for houses down in price. But year over year, we're actually similar to where we were last year. And then for the biggest drop has been in condos, and that's because they're entry level. And they've dropped in the number by 64% in terms of sales, and the price comparison, they're down 15.5%. So, but pretty much we're holding strong year over year. We were heading into a very strong market. I'm just going to stop sharing. We were heading into a strong market before, and then everything just kind of went.
Yeah.
It feels like it's getting busier.
Yeah, but isn't it? I mean, many people probably don't even list their house, right?
We're starting to get inquiries. Anybody who's tenanted right now can't sell their property.
Okay.
Right.
So you can't do any viewings. So I have a client who really wants to sell their house, and I have to say, well, I can list it, but nobody can go in the house. So it's better to wait.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. Absolutely. Okay. But there's still houses being sold and put on the market. That's good to know, I think.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody, let's say that you want to go to a house and it's vacant, we can put your house on the market, your own house on the market, as long as it's not tenanted, and you can move. And there are people right now, especially in divorce or separation, who want to move.
Yes.
And that's fine, as long as we have a place for them to go. One of the issues right now is just like vacancy rates for rentals is really low.
Yeah. Yes, as that's where I'm coming from as well, right? That we have clients who they just need to sell. They can't wait much longer. They waited with the overall process, the separation, way too long. And the COVID situation doesn't help. And they are maybe disagreeing on parenting and other things now. And now the housing situation comes on top, the financial situation ultimately, as income maybe has dropped for one parent, if not for both. And now they just feel the urge to make the moves, as they simply can't afford it anymore.
Well, one thing we had happening at the beginning of all of this in March, when it became apparent that things were shutting down, was people who thought their job might be in jeopardy, who wanted to get into their house. We did amendments to get them in earlier, because they would still have the financial resources, but if like they were going to be laid off or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's the people still buy and sell houses. And admittedly, it's some people are looking for deals right now. There are some bargain hunters out there, and definitely people who are for sale right now. Most of them are motivated. Some of my sellers right now aren't, and they could care less if it's sold, and they're fine with that. But they're just like, okay, well, if a buyer comes along, they can afford that, but some people can't. So we just have to be cognizant, and I think also be respectful, because you may want to see a property. I have buyers right now who don't have to move, and I'm like, it's not fair. It's very stressful to the seller to have a showing. And plus, realtors need to tell their clients that the sellers need to be out of the house, because twice I've done showings where literally 3 feet behind me, the seller's following me around. Ooh. And I'm,
People do that? Oh, okay.
I'm doing a video, right? I'm doing a video, and I'm facing that way. And so one guy was following me around. So I was like, turned the camera to him, and he ran away. And I said to the realtor, tell him, get out, because I'm trying to have a confidential conversation with the seller here, or with the buyer.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And you probably need to explain to them how it feels and how it smells and what you see when you look out the window and all those details, which would matter to me, for example. I'm very specific if someone, for example, has smoked in the house. That's something I need to know.
Well, during the presentation yesterday, I was saying that you just have to be incredibly honest and talk about the flow of the house, talk about the neighborhood, like look at the street. So it's not an unusual practice for me to do this. I've sold quite a few homes this way with people from out of town, and so I'll be like in front of the house with the camera. And what works really well actually is Facebook Messenger, and you just do like little 30-second clips. I'll be like, I'm going around. There are a lot of trucks up and down this street. And I was helping 2 women buy a house, and they're like, I don't think so. It doesn't feel like it for me, Yeah.
But, no, I can see you doing a fabulous job for a buyer. So how about the seller now? Let's talk about the seller a little bit.
I'm being interviewed. So what do you want to know?
Well, if you get a listing, right? What do you do because I mean, and I'm really not a real estate professional. Obviously, I don't know much about it. Haven't bought and sold many houses in my Canadian life. But I always have the feeling. No, actually, I had an experience. I phoned the listing agent and said I would like to see the house. She said, "Well, you gotta call the agent," and hang up. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know that. That I need an agent to look at a property, and that was many years ago. So it gave me the impression that sometimes an agent who lists a house, that's it. There's not much they would do. They do their video, they do their little folder, they put it on the market, on the listing, and then
Little folder.
Well, I was Lori's agent.
and
Yeah.
okay, and then they sit and wait, right? Probably not too much. But what would you do to sell a house? The open house? That sounds awesome.
Well, the open house now is virtual, so
Yes.
that's different. You basically are trying to prevent a multitude of people streaming through your house like you used to. The strategy is different, but I would say the biggest difference between like when I first started in real estate and now is I am more conscious of what the impact of a clause is, like a legal clause is on a seller and a buyer. And like we made it a subject to interview the neighbors, which I probably, when I first got into real estate, I wouldn't have done that. And the buyer even said, like, can you do that? And I'm like, you can do whatever you want, really, but it has to be legal and you have to be able to do your due diligence. So you want to protect the seller and the buyer and have them be able to do their due diligence well. I do find probably the biggest difference as well is that I'm not a nervous listing agent, and I think I'm pretty savvy about what's going on in the market. So I try and list where I think I'm going to reach the maximum amount of people. So working with sellers, sometimes they feel, well, you know, I used to list here, this was a strategy, and then we would sell here. But it's not a good strategy because the longer days on market you have, you get stigmatized. So
Yeah. So those houses who are now sitting through COVID, you probably just leave them there, right, for now. And yes, they will be a little bit longer in the market. But
yeah, like one of them, what we've done is we're just going to relist it when this is over. And you know, it's funny because we've had agents see them and then they say stuff like, well, you know, I'm going to do a market analysis. Your listing's overpriced. And I'm like, that's nice. They know that. They don't care. But others, you know, they like I listed a property last Thursday and we got an offer on Saturday.
wow.
And we have somebody who wants to do a backup offer. So, and I helped another buyer this week. So I'm still working, and I've been face to face with one person probably in a month.
Yeah.
Except for the seller who followed me around the house.
Yeah. Yeah, I meet my clients physically distant as well on a walk, and I'm very grateful for the nicer weather right now and the warmer temperatures. It's just gorgeous going outside now. It's not like I'm deep frozen after a 2-hour meeting. It's I'm actually got a tan.
I was thinking
And
that
I'm working. It's awesome.
it's really lucky that we're not in the southern hemisphere because it would be getting darker and darker. Like, can you imagine?
Yes.
Yes.
So do you guys have any news about what's happening in your areas of expertise?
I have a quick update, and I don't need to contribute too much today. It's about being really creative around spousal and child support payments. If you talk about that right now, not if you're already separated and those things are already going. Typically, we talked about this, I think, last week. This time of the year, you would exchange your T1s and adjust if income has changed by much on both sides, both ways. Uh, Many options for that. But right now, those who need to talk about it, and one party again has lost their job, the other one is maybe reduced hours. So let's put it that way. There's less money in the pot. As the other problem is nice to have, but it's not really a problem. So let's talk about those who are not fortunate at this point, and we really come up with interim. We look very deeply into the budgets. How much do they need to survive at this point, and what can the one who maybe is on reduced hours can contribute? I mean, we need to take into consideration as many people defer payments, mortgage, etc., and we need to take that into consideration. So there is a little bit of math, and depending on the conditions, how you defer, how fast do you need to make up for it? Is there any interest accumulating on it? Is it simply added to the end at the end of the term, whatever you're paying off? So there's a few details to look out for right now, but definitely there's creativity, and as I'm working mainly with couples who still talk and try to bring sense to the table, and that's a way to sort it out.
I find that so the finances is causing stress, hey?
Always, yes, always. It's the foundation, unfortunately. That's how the world runs. And if you go through a separation, um, people think, oh, I'm getting half of everything. Well, you can say it as well, you're losing half of everything. And you really need to have a deep look at your budget, at your lifestyle, and what you want to accomplish in the next year. When is your retirement coming up? If you have 30 more years, if you're young, that's not your concern at this point, most likely. If you are mid 50s, that is a huge concern. If you have stayed home for 25 years, then and you didn't have a job, now you need to look after it because your husband doesn't really make a lot of money or something, or you have someone you take care about, which costs a lot of money. There's a lot of things to consider, and really each family is unique, I find. But again, being creative, talking about it, having an open mind, and making interim agreements and subject to for further discussion, as we all hope we're going back to normal soon, but still, again, people need to make up eventually for payments they have missed and so on.
I think also people, I think they need to look long-term versus short-term. It feels like we're coming to the end of this, but I'm thinking it won't be till mid to end of June. What do you think, Lori?
Yeah, that's what it's sounding like. I just saw today that they're saying if we stay home as we have been, then they expect it to be down to 0 new cases in BC by mid-June. So it's not like the doors are going to suddenly fly open and we can all go have one big party. But even then, I expect that we will still have certain restrictions in place. And then they're talking about that second wave in the fall. So yeah, I think people need to be looking long term. Now that we've been through one pandemic, there's nothing to say there's not more coming, right? So how do you plan for whatever it is, any kind of glitch in life where suddenly the financial situation changes dramatically? So I think that's an important piece for people who are separated and divorced to be looking at. How can you put away some sort of contingency or have a contingency plan in place for when these things happen?
We're actually going to be talking to a financial advisor tomorrow, and I suggested that he speak on that topic because for me, it's huge because this is not going to go away.
No, and So whether you're divorced or not, for most of us, we don't have huge contingency funds put away. You might have a little bit of a rainy day fund, but maybe then you went and blew it on your vacation last year, or, we don't tend to, for the most part, people that I've spoke to, we don't tend to put that much away that we can easily access for times like this. So I think it's been a real learning opportunity for all of us that, like Bettina said, if you can look at your budget and figure out where you can squeeze those little bits out where you're, slowly over time putting away into a contingency for this kind of thing.
I'm so glad that we didn't go away at Christmas. We would go away and I have a huge bill in January, and I'm like, you know what? I don't feel like it this year. And well, I did. Of course, I always feel like going away, but
Yeah.
I just thought I'm going to be fiscally responsible.
Yeah. No, I see a lot of credit card debt, but yes, they have a big mortgage, and yes, they have a big house, but the net worth is maybe not as high as people think. And it works if everything runs smoothly, but now we have an interruption. Certainly, it will change, and the emergency fund is a big topic. Yes.
Yeah.
But I think Laurie had some things. What's new in the mediation world, right?
Yeah. Sorry, my earbuds just died on me, so I was adjusting microphones and stuff. You can still hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to mention, so Mediate BC is a provincial organization, and many mediators are on their rosters, meaning they have a roster of, mediators who've been vetted to do certain kinds of mediation. So I'm on their family mediation roster, for example. So right now they've created a new roster, and I believe there's, I think, 30 to 40 mediators across the province on it, and it's called the Quarantine Conflict Resolution Services roster. And so it's a roster of mediators who work across all different areas. So it could be workplace, could be housing, could be construction, could be family. So they're working across all different areas. And the intention of the roster is for people who have had a conflict of some kind come up that is specifically related to COVID-19. So for example, for parents who maybe need to make those interim adjustments to child support or their parenting schedule because of this, or people who have conflicts with their landlord over housing issues, even community disputes, in neighbor to neighbor, or those kinds of things, workplace conflicts that may have come up because people are working from home, and surprisingly, that can cause certain kinds of conflicts. So the roster is intended for that, and it's called a low bono roster, meaning people are billed on a sliding scale. So it can be a really economical way to deal with some very specific conflicts. It's not something where if you don't already have a separation agreement and you want to get one done, it's not intended for that. It's intended for things that really are related to the situation that we're in right now. So if you go to mediatebc.com, you can find information on the roster there, and then they have an intake process, and you can be referred to a mediator for online mediation. So I think it's a really great service, especially at a time where people maybe aren't making the same money that they were before. So this might be a way to help them deal with things.
Is that right? Mediatebc.com?
There's no dot between mediate and BC.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. There we go.
And if people have enough on their plate, right? And it's great to get maybe something resolved and out of the way. It's a burden for I would think 95%, 5% are happy and have no changes in their life. But I think for 95% of the population, this is huge. Yeah.
I agree. And it's all related in the end, I think, to cash flow.
Yeah.
Right? Like when this whole thing happened, I was like, oh, what do they need to do? They need to focus on, they're going to have to do something about mortgages. They're going to have to do something about payroll, because it's really the flow of money that is keeping everybody at home. And one of the issues with the US is there's no flow, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're lucky here in that our government is spending. I was talking to a financial expert, and he was saying there's sort of three pillars of the economy, and it's government, corporations, and individuals. And as long as one of those pillars continues to spend, your economy continues. When everybody stops, then the economy collapses. So
Right.
I think we're lucky here that the government is still spending. So even though it's a lot being spent and there's going to be an impact, at least if they weren't spending, I think we would see a huge collapse.
I'm keeping up to date with all my taxes and stuff and trying to pay it forward. So just because I was lucky enough to work pretty hard the first quarter, so I'm just finished the last of all my closings. So it's been like, now I'm thinking, okay,
Not this quarter.
I haven't worked in 6 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was I telling you guys, my daughter says, Mom, can't you spend a day without doing anything?
Does she know you at all?
Well, I think it speaks to work ethic, people, we were talking about coaching in one group, whether or not, what's a good coach. And I'm like, well, if you're accountable to yourself, do you need a coach? Because you're accountable to yourself. Some people aren't accountable to their coach, but it means I'm probably less coachable. Right. Anyway.
No comment.
So other than that,
I don't know. I see you are eager to learn a lot. Changing your way, I don't know. It probably depends what it is.
Yeah, well, I was saying as well, I'm always out there looking and researching, and I'm probably a lateral thinker. So I'm solution focused. So I'm trying to find the solution. We're still paying our cleaning lady, and she hasn't come in 6 weeks.
Wow.
But I know eventually she'll pay it forward somehow. Yeah. And she doesn't have EI or anything, right? Yeah. So yeah, and I keep saying, hey, honey, should we get the cleaning lady in? She comes every 2 weeks and just takes the edge off. We do the majority of the cleaning, and then she comes in and, and I'm looking at all the dog hair. And my husband's like, no, we're going to keep following, nobody else in the house. And I'm like,
yeah. And now your daughter knows why you do something every day.
Yeah, I try and do one house thing, one chore, one business thing, and then I do this show, and then dinner or clean up the kitchen, one or the other. We're rotating that. So
nice.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway. That's the tough part, getting everybody on board with that rotation.
Yeah. Well, we made oatmeal chocolate chip cookies yesterday, so all is well with the world now. Okay, so do you guys want to do this again next week?
Sure.
Okay, and we'll just find out. I expect there's going to be some major changes this week, so we'll see what happens, and hopefully we'll have a little more openness. But regardless, let's just follow along and see what happens. Tomorrow we're going to be talking to, hold on, let me just, sorry.
It's a financial person.
Last name, I think it's Phillips. Anyway, tomorrow we're talking to Sean. He's a financial advisor. He's going to be talk to us about planning and contingencies with COVID-19 and preparing for your future financially. And then Thursday, we're going to be talking to Darren Bridge. She is a certified coach and financial planner. And then, so this is all about money this week. Friday, we're going to be talking with Jennifer Lowe and mortgages. So you want to probably stay tuned for that, finding out what's happening with your mortgage, whether or not you can defer payments, and if there's any news. Last time we talked, there was quite a lot in place, so we'll see if that's still happening. All right, so thanks so much for coming, you guys. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Thanks for the education on real estate.
You're welcome. If you want to sign up for my newsletter, oh, by the way, can you go to my YouTube channel, you guys, and subscribe? If I get 1,000 followers, I get way more. I'm at 82.
Okay.
Okay, so go to YouTube. That's your homework for today. Check out Jane Johnston. I think it's Jane Johnston Realtor. And follow me, subscribe, and yeah, and that would help me enormously. I'd appreciate it. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye.